A thread by Carlos Osuita. I had no idea this series existed, and I'd certainly never heard of writer Eric Kripke. He recently gave the funniest interview of all time. It's the usual I hate Donald Trump drivel, but there's one noteworthy quote. The show, by the way, is called The Boys, and the Eric Kripke is the producer. Quote, I sort of believe it's dangerous not to overstate it or be overdramatic, but it's a little dangerous to train an entire generation to wait for someone strong to come in and save you. That's, I think, how you end up with people like Trump and populists who say, I'm the only one who can come in, it's going to be me. End quote. This creature thinks that comic books and movies based on comic books got Trump elected. Pause for a moment and ponder the sheer stupidity of that statement. The mind boggles. He says this without irony, quote, we write a lot about what frankly frustrates us. We're living in the world's dumbest dystopia, and we happen to have lucked into a show that is a perfect metaphor for this exact moment. End quote. A dystopia is an imagined world or society in which everything is horrible and people lead wretched, dehumanized, fearful lives. Newsweek.com. More voters say that we're better off under Trump than when Bush sought re-election. Quote, the latest survey from Gallup found that a clear majority of registered voters, 56%, believed they were better off now than compared to 4 years ago. But when they were asked whether they were better off or worse off toward the end of Obama's first term in the White House, only 45% told pollsters their situation had improved over the 4 years between 2008 and December 2012. End quote. Are we just too dumb to understand how bad off we are, Eric? Your point is absolutely moronic on so many levels that I find it nearly impossible to believe that someone would actually have your mindset. Americans don't vote based on comic books or movies. I haven't watched a single superhero movie except for the first Christopher Reeve Superman and the first Batman starring your fellow dope, Michael Keaton. Those were enough. There was a Wonder Woman movie I fast forwarded through to get to the World War I stuff. But the only comic books I liked were the ones that had stories about World War I. Since Hollywood is now fully dedicated to comic books, apparently, track down the one that has the story of the death of Peter Strasser. He commanded the German naval Zeppelin LZ-112, tactical number L-70, the most advanced of the German height climbers. These were rigid, lighter than air, strategic bombers. The L-70 was intercepted by Major Egbert Cadbury of the Cadbury Chocolates family and Captain Robert Leckie. Cadbury wore evening dress under his flight suit as he was attending a concert when found by a Royal Air Force orderly. Leckie was a gunner. Imagine that, a fabulously wealthy heir to the Cadbury fortune volunteered to fight for his country. They flew a de Havilland Airco DH-4. Don't feel sorry for Strasser. Quote, we who strike the enemy where his heart beats have been slandered as baby killers. Nowadays, there is no such animal as a non-combatant. Modern warfare is total warfare, end quote. Targeting civilians is an unambiguous war crime. To reach the Zeppelins at 16,000 feet, Cadbury had to jettison his reserve fuel. He had enough fuel left for one attack. The British prohibited parachutes because the brass felt that parachutes would encourage the men to abandon their valuable aircraft. Nice. The German Zeppelin had 14 machine guns on the underside, but Leckie put 97 rounds of incendiary bullets into it, and Strasser and his men went down in less than a minute. Lecky put a fresh drum on his weapon, and they attacked a second Zeppelin, which they damaged. With only enough fuel to get back to base, Cadbury had to break off the attack. L-70 was the third Zeppelin for Cadbury and Lecky together. Each had bagged a different one separately. I never forgot the comic book version of the story, even though I read it 50 years ago. Look at Eric Kripke's timeline. It's 100% negative. He's projecting his own misery onto the world. We live in an anti-dystopia. The only dystopic cities are run by Democrats. That's why I'm leaving California after 30 years. It's a bitch moving at my age, and with my arthritis, but I have zero quality of life in this leftist hellhole. We're overrun with violent, homeless mental patients. Despite my own dissatisfaction with my personal situation, I'm not narcissistic enough to project it onto the entire country. My gut tells me that life in Vegas won't work out, so I foresee another move. But so what? My problems are not yours. And if I play my cards right, things might work out pretty well for me. I've spoken a tad about my memoir, which I'll shop around at the beginning of next year. And I had a brainstorm. There's an actor here on Twitter who would be perfect for one of the starring roles. So when the manuscript is done, I'll contact his agency to see if they'll pass it along to him. He's very sane, and he knows who I am. So life is good. All is well.
I will be the greatest president that God ever created.